Hello, hello.
Oh, hello.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Well, back in Puerto Rico, and uh, because we're still building the house, I am in my I'm in my in-laws' spare bedroom using the bed as a desk.
Good times. How's
Yeah,
the grandma?
absolutely. I appreciate that. She's doing great. Um,
Good.
she she's doing okay, as well as to be expected. Appreciate that.
102, you said?
How's 102? Yeah.
Brr.
How, yeah. How about you and your family? How you guys doing?
We're good. We're counting down the days to graduations.
That's coming up already, isn't it?
Like days,
Oh my
days. It's
Lord.
crazy.
Wow. Yeah, I can't believe it's April. It's almost May.
Oh, when did we meet? Over the summer?
I think so.
Yeah, because you gave my boys marathon advice. They survived it. They said they're never, never, never doing that again.
Are you
Like, that
serious?
was torture.
That's so funny. Did you
Got the
remind them
medal and they
again?
are out. They're like, that's
Yeah.
the end. We've accomplished what we said we were going to do, and we're never touching that stuff
God,
again.
that's so funny. I don't know if I shared this with you, but when my wife and I, her name's Julissa, when we first started dating, I asked her one day, what do you enjoy doing? What do you do for fun? She goes, and when she tells the story, it's so funny because she's thinking, I don't know. So I said running, right? And then a week later, I had us signed up for a half marathon, and she
You
had never
didn't do
done.
that to her.
I I did, and she had never even run a 5K, which I had no
You're
idea.
lucky she still put up with
So,
you.
so we trained. She did everything great. It was the Merit of Mexico um, rock and roll half marathon, right? So every mile they're supposed to have bands playing and people cheering. We get to the
That's
starting
cool.
line. Oh, it's really cool. That was the concept. What actually happened was we show up the starting line and it's over the Dia de los Muertos, so Day of the Dead. So we have our faces painted and everything. It's really cool. So
The best day to run a marathon.
yeah,
Because I bet you all felt it. Did they do that
I,
on purpose?
I think so. So it's like the Dia de los Muertos, and we're running, we're having a great time. But they're setting people off in waves, and they're like, okay, wave whatever you guys are coming up next. We're like, okay, great. The skies opened up, and it was a torrential downpour. No music. Every mile there was no one there except for maybe some orange juice or some Gatorade, like very few snacks because it was just those heavy rain drop just coming down. But I'm still cheering her on every mile. Come on, babe, you got this. Come on, you got this. Come on, babe, every mile. Come on, you're doing great. Look at mile 11.
You're
I'm like,
still
come on,
just
babe.
barely dating, right?
Well, she moved to Colorado this
Punch
time.
you right in the nose.
So mile
You need to
11.
meet her because
I'm
she
like,
must be something.
you'll love this part. I'm like, come on, babe, you got this. She looks at me and she goes, stop supporting me. Then we cross the finish. Yeah. Well, then we cross the finish line. And because she's never done this before, she opens up the bag, she gets her medal, right? First of all, they give her the
Yeah,
medal.
yeah, yeah. Got to get the medal.
She opens the bag, she looks down, she looks at me, and she goes, a fucking banana? She's like, that's all I get for like what is there am I missing something here?
So funny.
You would love her. Her sense of humor is just phenomenal.
That's awesome. Let's see
And
the
then I have a
shirt.
pic. Ah,
Hey, that's cool.
yeah. But I
You
have
know
a
what I
picture of
thought
her
it was going to
half
say?
out. What's that?
Anyone with lungs can run a marathon.
Ooh, I need to get that one.
Could you? Or anyone with two lungs should be able to climb Kilimanjaro.
Yeah, right. You got it easy.
Shirts could go crazy.
Very funny. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people about the Kilimanjaro trip and they come up with one excuse after the other. The one's like, I have exercise-induced asthma or whatever it might be. I just write back or tell them I have one lung. What's your next excuse?
Here's mine. I'm old and I'm unwilling. Unless you've got a horse, I'm out. How's that?
I could go against you on the old part, but the unwilling part, there's nothing I can do about that.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Although I'd take you on an endurance race.
Yeah,
Have you ever done any of that?
I have not.
Any interest?
Ye- Maybe it.
I'm not going to make you because I'm not willing to do your Kilimanjaro. So I won't push it, but
I've
it's
always wanted to, like, what
pretty
is it?
cool. Oh, you don't know what it is. Um, it's a 100-mile race on horseback in one day. Keep some interest.
No, I'm trying to figure out how my butt's not going to get so sore.
Better your butt than your feet. Bad feet. I can handle the rest.
I would probably have a better chance of doing it on my own 2 feet than on someone else's 4 feet.
So the same race, the most famous endurance race is the Tevis, and it's in the Sierra Nevadas. It's actually less than an hour from me. I train on those trails. So there's a human Tevis where you do the 100 miles in a day, like, and then there's the horse and human team Tevis, and that's also 100 miles in a day.
And when you say horse and human team, it's like the person on the horse, not like a baton passing to the person.
No, but there is a sport like that. It's called ride and tie.
Really?
Mm-hmm. One person on the horse, one person on the ground, and then you switch
Oh,
and you
cool.
complete the race like that.
I'll be honest with you, horses scare me.
Are you kidding? All of the crazy things you do, and it's a horse that gets you palpitating?
It's a
Wow.
horse. I have ridden a horse maybe once or twice in my entire life.
Well, when you want to conquer that fear, let me know.
All right. I mean, I want to conquer that fear. I can't right now, but I would love
No
to.
rush. Actually, if we do the retreat we're talking about, my horses will be in attendance.
Great. They're going to be in the audience, hanging out, listening.
They will be part of the speaker lineup.
There you go. Cool.
Yeah, part of what I teach about is equine therapy. It's the number one rated therapy for uh, post-traumatic stress syndrome. Uh,
Really?
the main source of our research is the Veterans Administration and being able to take veterans that know medications, no therapies, nothing else seems to work, and horses work. And you
Oh,
don't even have to ride them. It's there's a biological connection when you're within a 3 foot radius of a horse. They're able to take over if you allow it. You can block it, of course, but if you allow them, they will regulate your heart rate and your breathing, and they will regulate your energy and help you through anxiety, help you through fear. Um, just moved to a new barn and met a police officer that said pretty much the same thing you just said. I don't like horses; they scare me. Like, you're a police officer, you can't be scared of these guys. I mean, you deal with real scary stuff, and I introduced him to Vane, and when horses greet each other, they exchange breath, which is common in a lot of cultures. Actually, my horses are Arabian, and that's one of the things that I was taught in my multicultural studies, that one of the customs is to be close enough to exchange breath. I don't know if that's still accurate or not. That's been 30 years since I learned
Hmm.
that. But anyway, maybe that's where it comes from. But when a horse meets another horse, they exchange breath, nostril to nostril, and that's how they judge whether or not they want to be friends. So when you're introduced to a horse, you also breathe into their nostrils and they exchange breath with you and judge you right on the spot if they're going to put up with you. And if they do, then you become part of the herd and they will help you. There's a herd regulation. Like if you know the fight or flight, right? Instincts, fight or
Yeah,
flight. Come on, you're going up
absolutely.
Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
At some point, something's coming after you and you're going to get out of
Yeah,
the way.
absolutely. Can you not hear me?
No, uh-uh.
Oh, no, I'm saying, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, now I can hear you.
Yeah.
I, I was like, you know this. So anyway, the herd will help regulate each other and they'll also alert each other to a
Hmm.
danger, and it's energetic. So if you're in a really bad place and uh, I put my arms around my horse's neck, go heart to heart, and I can literally feel them regulate my heartbeat.
Hmm.
It's magical.
That's really cool. I'm not a, I don't, I never said I don't like horses. I've just never been around them enough to really experience horses. They scare me because I got kicked in the head once, but I just caught it right here, just at the right time and bumped me back, but I just never have been around them. It's like anything.
Okay, how did you do that? On one of your trips?
Yeah, I think I was in Guatemala and this was in college, senior year in college, and I was studying ancient Mayan cultures and the religion and stuff like that. And we went on a horse trip. It was so cool. And I made the number one mistake walking behind a horse, but I thought I was far enough away and I wasn't. I saw the foot come up and I just put my hand up just in time and caught it. And I just never had the opportunity to be around horses, really.
They're pretty special.
I've heard from people who love horses, it is definitely something special for sure.
I had one kick me in the face on purpose. Like, I don't know if you can see, but this side of my face, it shattered my eye socket. It was a pony that I'd bought for my kids, right? Should have been safe. Was a little Rocky Mountain pony, the most beautiful, exquisite pony. But the guy that sold it to me had drugged it when I tested it. And I got back with a monster
Oh,
of a pony.
wow.
So I was retraining it and I took it out in Grand Staircase National Monument. And we're riding along, and the thing tries to take me off a cliff. So I'm off. I get off and we have a sharp conversation. And I'm like, you're supposed to be a kid's horse. What is wrong with you? And I'm chastising this thing and I smacked it and up it reared and it lashed out and it caught me right here. It shattered my whole eye socket. And so in the x-rays, like I had the worst concussion. Oh,
Oh,
it
I
broke my
bet.
nose, but my nose healed. But you can't like there's actual I have less face over here because of that stupid pony. Bad
Wow. Well, I mean,
pony.
you can't tell here, but good God.
I know. You'd think I'd quit, right?
No, I'm just trying to figure out why you're trying to tell me that horses are so nice and they're going to love me so much.
I said mine would love you so much. I did not say all of them. I said the ones I would introduce you to.
There
They're
you
just
go.
like
Okay.
people. There's good ones and bad ones.
I guess so. It's like dogs too. They have different personalities. Cats have
Same
all
thing.
animals have different personalities. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm up for it. I'll take the challenge.
Hey, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Catch me up.
Absolutely. So how can we continue our last conversation and change the world together?
This is your meeting. I pitched you last meeting. It's your turn.
Well, my meeting is going to begin with the fact that my wife and I, for the first time, we spent the weekend together. Not the first time that we spent the weekend together,
It's going to be
but
worried.
the first
She
time
was
that we
going to be
sat down,
more than a saint at this point.
right? Uh, we actually sat down and wrote out our family charter. So we don't have kids, we can't have kids,
Okay.
but we wanted to put together a series of essentially guidelines for the two of us and how we treat ourselves, how we treat others, and what each of us might need from the other person. So that
Good
really,
job.
sorry?
Good job.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it was interesting. And the funny thing is it's not anything we didn't know before. It's just that I think it was the first time that we have written it down and worked on it together. And I think by helping people with what we're looking at doing, that has to be the first step. You have to do the deep work and you have to get your mark of who you are. And because so many people are, there are probably more people out there who are making decisions on what others want for them than what they want for themselves. And a, a great sign of that would be asking somebody, hey, how'd you get into what you're doing? Like, oh, I'm a doctor. I was good at it. And
Right.
why are you good at it? You go, oh, because my dad was a doctor. Well, okay. And how are you feeling about everything? Well, I'm making a lot of money. That's great. How are you feeling about everything? Well, and you keep peeling back those layers. Well, you know what? I never wanted to be a doctor in the first place. I'm angry at my dad for pushing me into being a doctor. I don't need this money. I have all this money, but I'm so unhappy. That has to be the first step.
Yeah.
Understanding who you are. And 90% of the world, I'm just making up these figures, I haven't done the research, but I would say the majority of the world has no idea who they are.
They've forgotten.
Yeah, they've probably forgot. And that actually reminds me, I'm working on a project now helping people use their past uh, setbacks to become their superpowers.
I like that.
And one of the comments I said was something about you just need to remember who you are. So that goes along the lines of what we're talking about here as well, because everybody's been through trauma. I don't care if it's been a breakup or cancer or whatever it might be in your life. You can sit there and allow that to change who you are, or you can use it as, for example, for me, I decided one day that I wanted my scars to be a roadmap for someone else. And I think if other people voice up what they've been through and speak from the heart, not the head, then other people might be able to hear it. It's kind of like that analogy of the the young boy and the man and the starfish story. Have you heard that before?
I think so, but repeat it for me.
So in a nutshell, it's essentially there's an old man walking on the beach throwing back starfish into the ocean. There's a young boy who walks up and asks him, what are you doing? It's like, well, if I don't toss the starfish back in the ocean, they're going to die. And he looks down the ocean, the beach. He's like, well, there are thousands of them. You can't possibly make a difference in all their lives. It doesn't make a difference. So he picked up one, threw it back in the ocean, looked at him and said it made a difference to that one. So I think if people use their voices and speak from their hearts, not their heads, knowing that all they have to do is affect one person, there can be the proverbial ripple effect that goes around the world to make a giant difference in everybody's lives. But it starts with knowing who you are and why you're doing it.
100%. And I've
Yeah.
done the research. You're right on track.
Oh, absolutely. And it's actually neurologically proven with the synaptic connections in the norepinephrine and epinephrine and how everything goes up in the brain. And you have these experiences, hence the memories in the brain. And most of the time, people are, even if it's a horrible situation, they're going to stay there as opposed to change because change is difficult. And people aren't going to change until they develop those new connections and new memories.
I think it's beyond difficult, especially now. I think terrifying
Yeah.
is what most people are. Our data is showing that we've gone past that resistance to the status quo. We've gone past it being uncomfortable and difficult to full on terrifying, where it triggers that fight or flight. So instead of fighting and working our way through it, we're more prone today as a society to flee. Like we will run away physically, or we will run away in our own heads and get away from that pressure is unbearable right now.
So how can you, and without bringing up too much, my wife's niece, 25 years old, she went through a difficult time with her boyfriend a couple times, and me, you, her, my wife, we all have these coping mechanisms that we've learned throughout our lives by building resilience and going through those difficult times. But now
Right.
the kids don't have that. So
They
she
do
tried
not.
to take her life twice,
Oh,
right? So she's doing well now and
good.
she's getting the help that she needs. But how do you help someone like that? How do you help the people that you're talking about where it's no longer fight or flight, it's fight or leave? Not necessarily flight, but just like literally
That is
leaving.
flight. That is flight.
Yeah,
That is the most final expression of flight.
I guess so.
So I think the answer to that is something we talked about last week from the Dagara tribe, where you learn the
Right, right.
song of the child and you learn it from the day that they're conceived and you learn it and you teach it to them so that they never forget who they are, whether it's a time of trial or a time of celebration. We sing the song of the identity of that child. We sing the song when they're struggling. We sing the song when they get married. It's the same song. And I think we do a disservice in the education world, in the counseling world, in the therapy world by saying we have to tell a different story. We're in crisis. Let's tell a different story. We don't tell a different story. We live a different path of the same story. It's when we give up on that core of who we are, who we serve, and our core gifts and talents that God's given us. That's when we lose our way. That's when we can't fight anymore, and our only choice is to flee. Because our instincts will not let us stay still for very long. We can freeze for a bit, and that's called cognitive dissonance. Uh, we can't stay there for very long. Our body will push us to either fight it and make it through it or flee it and run away, whether that's in addiction, whether that's in drug and alcohol abuse, whether that's in suicide. It is a fleeing of the pressure.
Yeah, I mean, cognitive dissonance is very similar to the analogy of a rat in a corner. He's stuck there for a while, but he's going to come out fighting for the most part.
And
But
they will chew through
it's
anything.
right.
Like rats are serious fighters.
Yeah, they are.
There's
But I
nothing they
love
can't
the
go through. I've seen them go through concrete.
yeah. What they don't chew through because they don't like the taste. Um, Copper mesh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So one of the coolest stories that I learned about when I did my master's work on Aesop was the lion and the mouse. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, where the mouse took the thorn out.
There's that one, and then there's also a different one where the lion gets caught in a net. He's trapped. Well, this fierce lion with all of his power cannot escape the net. And this little mouse comes and chews through the threads and releases the lion. And the Aesop gives the cautionary tale, you know, if you're the mouse, do you approach that lion and offer help? And as the lion, do you accept help from the mouse? There's a lot of different applications that I find really interesting, but we all have teeth and we all have power in different situations. And we need other people with different skill sets and different talents.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also very similar to, because you mentioned earlier, Kilimanjaro or training for a marathon. You have people in the right places, people who are the guides who've been up there before, they know what to do, people who are following the leader essentially, people who are chefs to cook food. If one of those things wasn't in the right place and it didn't perform its function, the whole thing would never be a success.
Worse than that, people would die.
Yeah, yeah.
On your trips, something goes seriously wrong, or one of your critical Sherpa native peoples are not there in the right place to make sure that nature doesn't have its way with the naive climbers. I mean, let's face it, you might train them well, but we are naive against Mother Nature. We have no business taking her on without a lot of support.
Absolutely. And I tell people all the time who go over there with the concept and the idea and the mentality of them conquering the mountain. You know, they're always like, "Oh, I'm gonna, yeah,
That's
like
right.
I'm gonna conquer the mountain." I was like,
Good
"Dude,
luck.
if you, yeah, well, if it's you versus Mother Nature, she's gonna beat you down every single time. You will
We will take
never
you
win that
out.
battle." Yeah,
Don't tempt Mother Nature to show
no,
you what she can
yeah,
do. Just don't.
yeah. So you learn to conquer yourself, not the mountain.
Right.
And I've actually done that before when I was training for Everest. I remember being up in a storm at about 14,000 feet. And jokingly, I was just like, "Is that all you got?" My buddy looks at me. He's like, "What the hell are you doing?"
I would like to know what your guides, what the tribe you take with you say when you pull nonsense like that, because that's very spiritual to them, and they will take your butt back down the mountain and never take you again.
Right. No, it's funny because at that point, I think they know I'm joking, and Mother Nature, God, whatever, he knows she knows I'm joking too. And
Hope she's in a
I
good mood
also,
and finds
yeah,
you
right.
funny.
Yeah. But I also know, I think it comes back to the idea of whatever is thrown at me, I know I can handle. You know, and we also have a saying that there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad gear. So if you're not
Oh, I
prepared for
love
it,
that. Say it again.
right? The there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad gear. And obviously it goes
That's
back to
really
life,
good.
everything. You know, so now we have Gore-Tex, we have down jackets. People are like, "Oh, how cold is it going to get?" You know, just have
Does
the
it
right
matter?
gear. Exactly. So, you know, it can always get worse, but we're always planned for it. We're always prepared for it.
We do the same thing in horse racing. Uh, it is all about the gear, like the right
Yeah.
pants. Like you think simple things like the seam of your pants will destroy you. You will have raw legs
Yes.
by mile 10 if the seam of your pants is rubbing against your bare leg, and so you wear tights instead. The shoes you wear, the stirrups, like there are special stirrups to be able to balance yourself for that period of time. And if you attempt that race with improper gear, either your horse or you will be hurt or dead because of it. We had
There
an
are
example, and I'm going to not name names because it's still pretty raw. The last Tevis last summer, there were several deaths of horses
really,
and near deaths of humans. So there was one that was particularly controversial, and it was a horse that was known to be very, very fiery. And that horse needed things to be consistent every time. He was a freakish athlete and he had talent like you would not believe, but he needed things consistent and he needed the right gear. Well, a piece of the gear, his chest collar, was rubbing him a little bit. Now, keep in mind, you're climbing the Sierra Nevadas. That's not nothing. And you need things like chest straps to keep the saddle in place. If not, going straight up cliffs and straight down hillsides, you're going to lose that saddle. So, with a new rider, unused to this horse, the gear was removed at a very critical juncture. The saddle slipped, the horse reared at a cliffside,
oh,
fell down the sheer descent, and died. It is a miracle that the girl did not die with that horse for one simple misjudgment of taking off a piece of necessary gear.
you're not selling this trip very well at all.
I'm not taking you on that. I don't go on that. I do not
Okay.
do that race because post stroke, I'm at 30 miles. That's as far as I go. My horse is ready for whatever. He's been training in the high altitudes of Utah with an amazing mountain man and been breaking records there. So I know my horse does it.
Nice.
But I'll do it at my own pace, and I make sure that I can keep up with him. But uh, I am deeply uncomfortable with some of the ways that these races are run because of just what you said,
Mm,
a naivete regarding proper gear, proper preparation, and making sure you pay attention to what's around you because Mother Nature, I mean, it had been a year where we'd had a lot of moisture. The trails change, the rivers shift, the stability of the ground shifts. I mean, you know all this stuff with all of the climbs that you've done on all the continents and the runs that you've done. One slight shift in weather, and you have an entirely different race.
right.
And as a sport, sometimes I think we consider this like a hobby ride, and we naively go out without the preparation and without the determination that we leave the race if something goes wrong. We stop. We don't put the horse in danger and we don't kill ourselves over a sport. You just don't do it. So ethically, I am challenged a little bit by some of the things I see. And that was one of them. It was devastating. The girl that could have died, I want to say she was 19 or 20, like prime of her life, and her coach told her to get rid of that strap.
Wow.
I mean,
You
how
know,
much worse could it have been?
it-
And horses spook with each other, just like humans. You want to know why humans panic in a crowd? Look at a herd of horses. When one panics, they all panic and they flee
like,
because dangers. I mean, that's the whole Supreme Court ruling. Don't yell fire in a crowded building unless there's a fire.
right.
Don't panic the crowd.
There are, I had no idea until we started talking, but there are a lot of similarities between the Kilimanjaro trip and what you're talking about. Because let's say you're on day three and you have a tiny little hot spot on your boot. You're taking 3,000 steps. When you said that the chest harness for the horse, I thought you were going to say that it was rubbing there over and over and over and over and over. So,
It's a tiny bit. The solution would have been to pad it or to create some
hmm,
lubricant there that would prevent further rubbing. You don't remove the safety gear.
something very similar here, because if you're taking 30,000 steps that day and you have that slight rubbing, if you don't take care of it before it gets worse, your boost can be your biggest asset or your biggest detriment.
Yeah.
And I always give them a gear list. We go over the gear list. I have people from other groups reaching out to me asking for insight and suggestions. And I'm like, well, you're going with that group. Shouldn't they tell you? So going back to your morals, well, going back to your morals and ethics, there are some people out there who
There
have
are.
no idea what they're doing,
Right.
and the people who, I would say the people who usually fail on the mountain are the ones who underestimate it with a lack of respect. And it's usually the very high egotistical, narcissistic people who think they know everything. Yeah, Sean, I got it. Well, I told you about, I know. And I'm like, okay, well, you know what? We need to talk about this because if you don't, you might die. And I don't want that. You don't
I
want
don't
that.
believe that.
Yeah, but there's a lot of similarities. And I guess that brings up how do you get through to those people? And maybe those aren't the individuals we want to talk to anyhow.
I think that when I first started teaching on the Mexican border, I did this printout and it lasted the whole time I taught. And it was knowledge is power. And I don't think knowledge should be at a premium. I think everyone should have access to knowledge. It doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter whether you can afford it, you should have knowledge. So that's the first thing. I think you give away knowledge. The second thing is you can't you can be the guide, but you can't take over the hero's journey. You can guide them,
Right.
but they have to accept you as their guide. If they choose not to listen to you, you're not their guide, which relieves you of accountability. Right. So in our circumstances, like I teach people to ride all the time, just like you teach people how to mountain climb. My ethical obligation is to make sure my horse is not crazy, for one thing. Like I've done my job. Like you've set everything up for them to be successful. However, should they get on my horse and act like a jerk, my horse has a right to retaliate, and I warn them up front. You need to be respectful. This is a 1,000-pound beast that allows you on their back. Do not take that as permission to mistreat them. So I think that all the native cultures teach about respect for nature, respect for each other. And I think that that's foundational. But the ultimate answer to your question would be if they don't want you as their guide, it's no longer any of your business.
Right. And it's interesting. You know the horse, I know the team, I know the guides, I know. And one of the things that I've seen other groups do that we never do, and I make it a point to tell them this at the briefing beforehand, that guy who's leading our group, right? We go single file most of the time because it's pretty narrow. We go single file. That guy up front has worked his way from a porter to an assistant porter to a porter to this to assistant guide to the. He has earned his spot at the front of the line to guide us. It is disrespectful to pass him.
They don't.
Some people do, but because they
Oh,
forget. And
do you know what a
honestly,
horse would do? Okay, the dominant play, if the little brother Fire attempts to pass Vane, if I'm riding Fire, then that's another story because I'm the herd boss. Then it's Vane, then it's Fire. If Fire, as the lower man on the totem pole, attempts to take over the role of dominance for Vane, there is an immediate reaction of teeth and hooves, and it is done in seconds. Why, as
hmm,
humans, do we think we get to disrespect the people that are keeping us safe? Just not allowed.
I think it's because they don't know.
Isn't that a
So
shame? Because that's an instinct.
yeah,
They have unlearned an instinct because they should know. They
Yeah.
do know. They've overridden instinct.
And
And that's a problem.
it's usually the younger people, like I would say the 17 to 27, 28-year olds who are the ones who, because they have all this energy, they think it's okay to go ahead and pass and everything else. But you're right, it should be an instinctual thing, knowing not only is the guy who's leading us older, but he's been here, he's been up the mountain 300 times probably.
Right.
So he's the one who's going to show you the way. However, there are some points where in leadership, I call it leading from behind, where, I can go all over the mountain because I have that respect and I've earned that respect with the number of trips
Right.
I've been up. So I tell people that I lead from behind. So we have, is usually Teo out front, and then I'm usually in the back. But it's so, because I know Teo knows where he's going. He's been up there 300 times. I've only been up there 26. I'm still a rookie in his eyes. So
Right.
I'm in the back usually, keeping an eye on everybody to make sure that they're staying behind Teo, that they're staying on the trail, that they're not falling off and dying.
Well, you're forming the herd boundary.
Yeah,
So you have to have the leader in front and you must have the protector in the back. And
absolutely.
you look at packs, you look at herds, that's how it is.
I look at
And
how they
if we
struggle.
as humans would learn more and rely on our instincts more, leadership would not be so complicated.
But here's the thing. I think people don't listen to their instincts as much as they should because they have these things on their faces all the time.
They do.
Technology. Like, oh, well, what's it going to be like? Okay, let me check it out. As opposed to like every other animal on Earth, the birds squawk, the dogs run, the cats take off when there's an earthquake right before it comes. They know. Us, we're like, oh my God, what was that?
Let me
Not
check
what's
the
coming.
weather.
Yeah, right. And most of the time, humans always ask, what was that? What happened? As opposed to knowing something's going to happen and doing something about it beforehand.
You're right.
Hmm. So I think with the conversation that we're having here, we could help people be more aware, to tap more into their instincts, to learn to trust their gut, and understand that the heart and the mind don't necessarily have to work against each other.
So to go to your explanation of the way that you go up the mountain. So if you think about it, you've got really three decision-making elements in the body. You've got the heart, you've got the mind, and you've got the gut. The gut is your instinct. So people say, I just go with my gut. Well, they're going with their instinct because there's so many cues and ways of reading a situation that we're not consciously aware of. And so being able to understand and influence yourself and speak with influence to engage other people and help them see a new path, a different path. If you can engage those elements that we know exist but are still so mysterious to us, uh, then that knowledge is powerful, and that transmission of knowledge gives whoever is willing to receive it additional power to make better choices to live the life that they choose.
It's interesting you say that because on the mountains, when I first started doing this, I would pay attention to the weather. I would look at the clouds, so many other elements. And now it's all just natural. So, every once in a while, look over there, look down, look around. And it just comes naturally. It's very similar to driving a car. When you first started learning to drive a car, your hands 2 and 10. Okay, every 3 seconds, check the rear view mirror, check the side mirror, check this mirror, shift, whatever. It becomes natural. And I think when people are in a situation like the mountains or being on the outdoor, whatever, anything uncomfortable, they stop listening to their gut because they haven't been taught how to hear it. Hmm.
Do you think that's it? They
Or they
haven't been
just,
taught how to hear it, or do you think that we have intentionally programmed ourselves against listening to our gut?
yeah, it's a great question. It could be both.
Think about little kids.
Yeah, stranger danger. They know when a person's
No,
not a nice person. They know.
no,
And then what happens when all the red flags come up and you're starting to date somebody, and you're like, I knew I shouldn't have dated that person. There were so many red flags. Kids
right.
wouldn't do that. They would run the opposite way.
Yep.
So I think I would say it's
We
both.
always know. We
Yeah.
contradict ourselves when we allow our conscious thoughts and our in front, uh, everything's coming at me to override what our gut tells us. And normally, if we can step back from the chaos, find a little moment of peace, and listen internally, the right decision will present itself. It does every time. Now, some people call that religion, some people call it faith, some people call it the universe. I honestly don't care what you call it. There is an internal function that will guide you.
And that brings up a good point too, because I think a lot of people are more concerned about what others think of them than what they think of themselves. So they start making decisions based on what others want for them, as opposed to what they want for themselves, while when they should be listening to that inner voice. And I think they're more focused on, there's a big difference between self-esteem and self-worth. They're more focused on self-esteem than their own self-value or their self-worth. But I think many people are making decisions based on their self-esteem, because your self-esteem is basically what you think others think of you, as opposed to making decisions based on your self-value, your self-worth. And then that goes back to being concerned about what you want, making decisions based on your core values, who you are as a person. So how do we continue taking this forward?
That's what you were working on since our last meeting. I'm ready to hear.
Well, I was thinking a couple different, because it's very similar to a project I'm working on right now, and I don't know if I told you about it in this or not. Um, Let me try to bring it up here. Where are you, Scott? Okay. So there was a guy I had a talk with yesterday, and it's unbelievable how, again, nothing happens by coincidence. So he and I were talking. He was going to go up Kilimanjaro. Long story short, he had a death in the family, and he's giving a speech on Saturday. He's not going up Kilimanjaro now because of everything going on,
Oh,
but he has to speak in front of 150 close friends, basically, about the death and what happened. And he's been through a lot in the family. And I told him that I was working on a workbook that I entitled "Speaking to Empower." So where you
nice.
actually, it's not about, well, it's essentially understanding that your setback can be your setup and your story can be someone else's hope. And in here, I'm actually looking at it now. I want people to reframe their pain into meaning and purpose.
Okay.
And I think if you structure the story well enough, it connects and empowers, and you speak with authenticity, confidence, but the biggest thing is from the heart, not the head. So you're not sharing to be famous, you're sharing to change a life. Going back to the starfish story, right? Making a difference in one
Right.
person's life because maybe one
Right.
person needs to hear it. And if you share a story, you might give somebody else the courage and so forth. So I'm thinking for those who are massive celebrities, or maybe not even just massive celebrities, but people who are going through difficult times, who have the following, who have the ability to share a story and reach other people, they could do something like this and see how it impacts their lives on a personal level and share their own personal stories. Not, oh my God, it was so amazing. As opposed to that, it's, oh my God, it changed my life. I once thought this and now I think that. Or I once felt this way. I once felt insecure. Now I feel confident. I once felt this. Now I feel that. So I think if we can get a tribe, going back to your analogy too, if we can get a tribe of people like that to share it, then it'll hit the ears that need to hear it. But again, the program needs to be put together or the challenge, whatever it might be. And I think that, in all honesty, I think that would be the easy part. It would just have to be taking our two heads, putting them together and creating something that goes with what you believe, what you're trying to accomplish, with what you're trying to accomplish and why. And then the same thing on my side.
So co-author a workbook, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that workbook's done, but I think we could definitely create something to help others with a co-authoring of I hate calling them programs. And the reason I don't like calling them programs is because I've looked at other programs, I've researched other programs, and they're essentially written by other people to program you. I want to write something and do something so people can program themselves. So instead of maybe a program, I don't know what the best word would be, self-program, self
We call
reprogram.
them legends experiences
Yeah.
because we want to take them through an experience that contributes to their legend, to their core truth of who they are. So I
Absolutely.
also never use the word program. It's always an experience.
I like that. And like we said, it could just be as simple as remembering who you were or remembering who you are.
And committing it. So you mentioned something about
Right.
when you and your wife did your family charter. There probably isn't a lot new on there. It's not a creation. It's uh, a commitment. So there's a lot of science. Howard Gardner published 7 different styles of learning, 7 intelligences that the education world uses. It's been around for a while, and it's very commonly used. And based on that science, we know anytime that we can engage uh, multiplicity of intelligences. So, for example, and ways of learning. Some people learn best with their ears. Some people learn best with their hands. They're kinesthetic learners. Some people are visual learners. But when you can combine various elements of intelligence, then we learn. If we can combine 3 or more, we go from a 10% learning of that information to 70% plus. And that
Hmm.
will vary. That's not something that you can mathematically program just by piling on different intelligences, but you can reach a 70% threshold, and then some people will go way above that. But you can reach that threshold by incorporating multiple ways to communicate using the arts, using the sciences, using research, using powerful communication, using music, anything that you can bring to that experience enriches it, and that's how we teach our spirit to remember who we are.
I like that. And as you're talking, I was thinking what I've done, I've done what I've done without really knowing this information. Now I do because I've done the research, but before I had no idea. So essentially we have the story, we have the experience, we have the knowledge, the wisdom on your side, and then combining that into a relatable human story would really make a tremendous impact because it wouldn't hit people on a cognitive level, it would hit them on an emotional level, and then that's where they become really truly involved.
Have you studied decision science?
I have not.
So fascinating. So 95% of anybody's decision is based on emotion.
Huh.
5% is logic. Here's the trick. You can be emotionally convinced, but you need that 5% to go over the threshold and act. But by speaking directly to the emotions and engaging emotionally, spiritually, soulfully, authentically, whatever word you want to put on it, uh, by speaking in ways that our instincts recognize, by following the patterns of old, by following what we know is persuasive. It's persuasive on every continent. Oh, I wanted to talk to you about so you've got all your stuff with the 7 peaks, with the 7 continents running. Have you ever studied how sacred the number 7 is?
I haven't studied it, but I know pretty well. Yeah.
So there are 7 chapters in
Yeah.
Legends. There are 7 continents. There are, and I am not quite done. So I need to think through what the next indigenous culture I'm going to study is. And I kind of want to have an introduction to your tribe in
Yeah.
Kilimanjaro. And I would like to take one of their legends and make that the next. So my goal is to make sure I have represented all 7 indigenous populations with honoring their storytelling and an actual legend, but also mapping out that universal structure. Would you be willing to do that?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Of course, I have 1 minute left now. But long story short, I was there, I think it was my 23rd or 24th trip up Kilimanjaro. And the one guy was giving me something that his grandpa gave to him and his grandpa gave to that grandpa and so forth. He's like, look, I want you to have this. And
Mm.
I looked at it and I was like, okay, that's fantastic. It was just beautifully carved white
Please tell
bone
me
is
you
what it
didn't
looked
say
like.
no.
I took it and then we went to go visit his brother, and his brother said he cannot take this. It's carved ivory.
Oh, yep,
And if I would have taken it to the airport, they would have arrested me and they would have
arrested you.
put me in jail for the number of years that I visited. So if I visited Tanzania 20 years, they would have assumed that I would have been smuggling ivory out for 20 years and I would have been in jail for 20 years. So in that tradition, they pass things down. Because it's now illegal in Tanzania, he had to bury it on his property somewhere because they're looking for it now to throw people like that in jail. But I will
That's
definitely,
horrible.
yeah, if you have like I don't like a series of questions or something, I can ask, like I can do an interview style while I'm over there with a microphone and camera and just get some more information for you on that as well. Yeah. All right. I love this. I unfortunately have to go. I have a phone call
Me
one
too.
minute ago.
Me
Okay.
too.
Okay, good. Well, I will talk to you soon. We'll
Good plan.
love this.
Okay, talk soon.
Okay, take care.
Bye bye.
These are the voices rising through time. Truth in the rhythm, fire in the line. From silence to signal, from echo to flame. Legends don't whisper, they rise with a name. Oh. Voices of legends. This is the upcast. 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 Voices of legends. This is the upcast.